off the show this afternoon, concerns about pollution wreaked on the environment by plastic waste have birthed global initiatives to reduce and eliminate the consumption of single-use plastic. Unilever has taken this call seriously and is doing its part through the adoption of a circular economy. Here to tell us what that means and more is CEO of Unilever East Africa, Justin Apsey. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, glad to have you. As we begin the conversation, let's just start off with what is a circular economy?
It's an interesting concept. It's the idea that we are trying to start from the beginning in understanding what waste we provide and seeing whether we can make that into a circular solution within the economy. We know that there's a lot of value lost through plastic waste, billions and billions of dollars, a number of studies done by the United Nations in various spaces. So the whole idea of a circular basis of economy is how do you trap that value and bring it back into the economy, not wasting it in what you do. And that requires you to think all the way up the stream at the start.
Okay, so it's from beginning to end so that the whole process is more waste friendly. You're managing the waste as opposed to just contributing it to the environment.
Absolutely right. And I think the word waste has obviously got a number of meanings, the things which we see in our oceans, but also financial waste as well. If you think about what goes down the lane and what goes down the drain and what ends up in the oceans, it's how do you try and trap that and make sure that it works correctly. At the same time, reduce the effect that we're having on the environment, because the planet's only one of them. We can't, there's not another one we can find as the population grows.
True. And actually, according to the World Economic Forum, plastic packaging waste represents $80 to $120 billion lost to the global economy every year. So as you say, it's not just waste that's, contributing to planetary harm. We're also talking about financial waste, so in terms of using your resources more prudently. And to what extent are corporate objectives aligned with taking on a more environment-friendly approach, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think there's a debate which is this good for business? Is it good for shareholders? And I think the best way to look at that, and what we do at Unilever, is we say there's actually no business case for a failing society. And the cost of doing nothing now far outweighs the cost of doing something. And therefore, it makes financial sense. And at Unilever, we've committed quite strongly to that. We have a thing called the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, which talks about our effect in society and what we want to do as we grow and reducing our environmental impact. And a big part of that is in this area of plastics, where we've committed by 2025 that we will have 100% of our plastic either recyclable, reusable, or recombustible.
Okay, that's a really big aim, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Okay, but scary is good.
Scary is good. We don't know how we're going to do it. We've got a number of people working around the world in this space. It's in the idea of how do you create plastics that either have less plastics, better plastic, or no plastic solutions. But we've taken on these goals many times, and we signed the Sustainable Living Plan talking about decoupling our growth from our environmental impact and our social footprint 8 years ago in 2010. We didn't have a great plan then either. And 8 years on, we're #1 in the world in Sustainable Index and doing a really good job. So everyone's very excited. And the good thing is our consumers are excited about it, and our employees are very excited about it, which makes me very excited.
All right, that's good. But let's move on now from, of course, Unilever being a mammoth sort of institution. But what about SMEs? And when it comes to small and medium enterprises managing their waste, sometimes it's like, oh, okay, my impact is not that great because I'm not producing as much.
Yeah.
So you don't take those necessary steps. But of course, it does end up in the costing quite a bit when everything is put together. So what are some of the steps that SMEs can possibly take in order to reduce their wastage?
So I think the first place to start is to make sure that your packaging is recyclable. Because that's the first place to where we need to do. And a lot of what we're seeing come through, particularly, let's talk Kenya, because it's a big part of what I look after, and it's a place where I think is making some fantastic strides. The plastic bags ban was a very, very bold step by the government. Caused a lot of challenges to manufacturers, but the right thing to do, because we want this to make sure it's right for our economy. Making your packaging recyclable allows for the circular economy to start. And the next big step is how do we generate a collection scheme that can work sustainably, because moving waste around is very expensive. And I think that's one of the big things we're working on now with our Mr. Green partnership that we're working with here in Nairobi, and hope to extend it around Kenya, is how do we collect sustainably? Then we've got to get an industry which is going to be built around converting that. And we need to start embracing it. We can't just send everything overseas. And then we need to start getting manufacturers to start blending that into their packaging. And that's not something for just big people like us. Actually, it makes financial sense, because the reusability of plastic is actually one of the powers of the substrate. And we're not using it. We're throwing it away now.
Okay, all right, great. And as you mentioned, of course, our plastic bag ban. And our Twitter poll question today is, should plastic bottles be banned? What do you think about that?
Interesting question. Yeah, I think when you look at what's available and what's out in that environment, it is an eyesore, and it does cause massive environmental degradation. And the work being done by CAM and PETCO and other organizations like that is really understanding that employers need to have employer recoverable schemes, put levies in place. How do we get that plastic out of the environment and where we're at? You know, the problem with taking plastic out completely is there's no major answer what you do next. Yeah, glass is has as much of an environmental impact in what you can do. Water is a big thing we need in this country, and we need to be able to move it around very cleverly. You can't go to recyclable plastic in PET overnight because of malodor and those things. So I think it's a complex question. I think we need to reduce, definitely. I think rejection is the first thing of plastics, but then we've got to find a sustainable solution for how we handle PET, because, as I say, plastic has a value. We just need to find a way to make that work in the economy.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me, Justin Apsey. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
All right, that was the CEO of Unilever East Africa, Justin Apsey, talking about sustainability, talking about building a greener future, not just within Unilever, but within the Kenyan business industry as well in general. And with that, of course, our question is, should plastic bottles be banned in Kenya? On Twitter today, at Malika Kazia at KTN Kenya is how you let us know. That hashtag is KTN Business. Do keep on telling us your thoughts with regards to our Twitter poll question this afternoon. On that note, we're going to take a short commercial break.